Hey guys, Sundown Rider here. This is going to be my chapter review to One Piece 895, Pirate Luffy versus Sweet Commander Katakuri. Now this chapter, to be fair, before I get rinsed by all of you, I was slightly underwhelmed by this chapter. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, and I'll come on to it later when we get onto the meat and potatoes of the fight between Katakuri and Luffy. But I was slightly underwhelmed by the whole Snake Man thing, and I'll come to that. And I think you'll kind of agree with me because it wasn't a bad thing, and I'll come to it. So to begin with, I'm really interested by the cover story. I've always liked Hyrule, and now that he and the new giant pirates have severed allegiances with Buggy the Clown, or this new, I think Buggy's a Shichibukai, isn't he? Yeah, so with Buggy the Shichibukai, we'll be following them, the new giant pirates around, and we'll see what they'll get up to. So coming on to the actual chapter, Gear 4 Snake Man. Let's talk about the appearance first. Now it looks pretty cool, and it looks a little bit different to what I thought it'd look like. I didn't really have an idea of what it would look like. I was kind of on the just really unaware, and really I didn't have an idea of how it would look like. So at first I thought it was just a skinnier bound man, you know, like with the haki going all across almost his full torso and around his back. But upon closer inspection, it's not really a lot like Bound Man in many senses. Firstly, Luffy's haki covers only his arms up to like the mid upper arm, and the entirety of his lower legs. We don't know how far up his legs it goes because his shorts obscure the rest. The flame designs at the extremities of the haki, they appear at the middle of his upper arm. So it looks like he's almost got like tribal sleeves almost, and the flames just appear here, and it's pretty cool. Luffy also has a thicker coat of steam in his Gear 4 Bound Man because he's so large. I think the coat of steam that appears around him, and it's like a veil. And I think in Japanese mythology, like there's some gods and stuff that have the veil, like this cloud veil kind of thing, almost like a scarf around them, and it drops down over their shoulders. And Luffy has that same thing. That's the whole thing behind like Gear 4. He's kind of got that like Buddha thing going. And he has that same thing going. But I think because in Bound Man, because he's so large, the steam around him looks quite thin. But in his Snake Man form, the steam around him is really thick, and it's like this scarf, like it drapes around him in this scarf-like fashion, like I say, which makes him look a lot more badass than if he had been presented without it. His hair floats and it's sticking up on end in his Snake Man form, making him look like a Super Saiyan almost, and it's pretty sick. And lastly, Luffy's battle stance changes. Now this was something I noticed almost straight away just because of the way his hands were positioned, and he's holding his fists in a more like Bruce Lee 1-inch punch fashion kind of thing. So you assume this is for the added explosiveness and quickness type thing, you know. So it's literally he's holding him like with the first with the knuckles before your actual punching knuckles. He's holding it in a more open fist. So that was a nice addition, you know. It's just that explosiveness and quickness. Now getting on to the fight, Luffy and Katakuri then progress the fight, with Katakuri using Kenbun Shoku no Haki to dodge Luffy's Snake Man attacks, but he still gets hit. And after Luffy's third strike, he grasps the idea of Snake Man and he thinks up his own response. Now the idea of Snake Man is Luffy launches a really quick attack, and obviously Katakuri dodges. But then with that pace, he just bounces it off like he does in Bound Man in his attack, the Python attack. And it just comes around, but because it's coming around at such speed, Katakuri doesn't even notice it, and it hits him again on the other side of the face. So it was really cool, and I was like, yo, that's a pretty neat idea. But Katakuri grasps the idea, and he's like, oh shit, this is why I'm getting hit. After only the third strike, literally during the third strike, he realizes. And I really liked how Katakuri does actually get decked thrice by Luffy. The first one actually connects him straight in the face. The second one, he guards it, but gets sent flying through, just flying across the mirror world. And then the third time, he does actually get smashed through some walls and stuff. So I was like, yo, this is pretty cool. Luffy's putting in some work, and Katakuri's getting decked. And it was awesome to see Katakuri struggling to keep up to begin with. But the underwhelming part of Snake Man was that Katakuri was able to think up of a response after just 3 hits. And I was like, yo, this is quick. Like, Snake Man's almost been nullified. And then when I reread the chapter, I was like, actually, maybe not so much. So essentially, it made Snake Man seem like less of a badass transformation than Luffy's other transformations, where he dominates once using them. You know, when he went Gear 4th Bound Man against Doflamingo. Doflamingo was getting demolished. He got butt raped. However, I can't say that I dislike this. because it shows how experienced Katakuri is compared to Luffy, and that a single gear transformation won't be enough just to take down Katakuri. It won't sway the fight in Luffy's favor so much that Katakuri will just be dominated. So Katakuri's response to the Snake Man was obvious. It was a nice attack. We've not seen it before. He assumes this kind of. I'll talk about the appearance of it, but it's called Diced Mochi, which it was an awesome attack to behold. You know, he takes on this donut spiral form, I assume, to build up momentum, and then he kind of pulls his arm up in like this kind of like an overarching punch kind of thing, like, you know, when they punch over someone else's punch. Usually you see it in boxing like that. Let me just put my phone on silent. So yeah, it was so he when he comes out of the spiral with all that momentum, he just kind of throws his arm over, and his arm is incredibly swollen and elongated, especially around from about the midway of the forearm down to the midway of the upper arm. And he also has a lot of haki concentrated on it. You can tell by the flaming tribal designs once again. And it spiked, and once it makes contact with Luffy, obviously it must like cut him up a bit or slightly impale him. We don't actually see anything going through Luffy, but it does cut him up a bit because you can see the blood made from the contact. Now, I really liked that punch. I was like, yo, this is pretty cool just itself. But the best part was how Katakuri made sure to keep the consistency of Mochi when attacking Luffy, and this allowed Luffy to get stuck in his arm, allowing Katakuri to then throw Luffy around like a ragdoll. And essentially what he did was he elongated his arm further. Luffy's like many feet in the air, and then he pulls him down and smashes him like straight into the ground. There's a huge pit in the ground after he did that. And the scene where Katakuri first uses Diced Mochi and he slams Luffy down into the ground, creating that pit, he looks like an absolute demon after that, you know, where like smoke's coming out of his mouth and his eyes are just pits. I was like, yo, this is crazy. So then I liked how Luffy, being typical Luffy, is concentrating on his hunger. He's just like, oh man, this sucks, I'm so hungry. And I'm just like, wait, what? You just got your ass beat and you're hungry? And actually, there was a Reddit user, Salami Rocket Fuel, all in one word, once again on Reddit, who makes a very good point here. And he says Katakuri looks like he's teaching Luffy how to fight on the next level, whereas Luffy is teaching Katakuri that it's okay to be yourself. You know, he's just speaking his mind during the fight, and Katakuri's confused, like, what are you doing? Why are you speaking your mind? Like, we're in the middle of a fight, and Luffy's like, it's okay, you know, I'm just being myself, I'm refreshed, don't worry about it, I'm just speaking my mind. And so it's just a nice little point, you know, like even within this fight, there's a lot of respect, and they're actually teaching each other and picking up a lot of things from each other, even within this life or death situation. Now, as I said before, Katakuri may have thought up of a response for Snake Man pretty quickly, but that doesn't stop them exchanging blows like for like, and that's what I really liked. You know, he didn't completely nullify Snake Man. They did still exchange blows, and they were exchanging them one for one, like for like. And they're absolutely nailing each other at this point. Luffy's like decking Katakuri, and Katakuri's decking him. And this was great because it shows how close a match that both of them are for one another. But with Luffy still slightly below Katakuri, I think. That's just my opinion. But I think Luffy is still slightly below. I mean, you can tell Katakuri's Busoshoku no Haki still hurts Luffy when they make contact, when they clash with their Busoshoku no Haki, because Katakuri's is stronger. That's just the essence of it. Luffy needs to train his Busoshoku further. So then Luffy gets a spiked knee to the face, followed by Katakuri's Diced Mochi again, but this time Luffy responds with what may be assumed, I'm not too sure right now, but it may be assumed to be his strongest Snake Man attack, which is King Cobra. Now, all his Snake Man attacks, apart from the Jet Culverin one we see, are snake themed, obviously. Unless Culverin, I thought Culverin was a gun. Yeah, I think they're all snake themed apart from Culverin. And then the chapter ends as these two moves clash. It's Diced Mochi versus King Cobra. So yeah, now it comes down to who wins and what happens thereafter, obviously. Having never seen this King Cobra attack, we don't know how powerful it is, but Luffy has chosen to counter Diced Mochi with this attack, so we gotta have some faith in what Luffy has chosen, in the move Luffy's chosen to attack Katakuri with. It's not like his Snake Man attacks are weak. They sent Katakuri reeling when they made contact the first 3 times at least. The attacks are definitely weaker than Bound Man. I feel like they're definitely weaker, but only by about 10 to 15%, I think, because, you know, if you put in the, like, if you were to try to calculate this, his speed in Snake Man would add to the overall force, even though he has less mass than in Bound Man, unless the mass is like exponentially greater than his mass in Snake Man, which I don't think is the case. But yeah, his speed would definitely add to the force of the attack. So I do think it's only 10 to 15% weaker than Bound Man. But it's new to see a villain who hasn't been slammed just after Luffy took on a new form. I mean, Lucci didn't get demolished after Luffy took on Gear 3rd and Gear 2nd and things like that. But it's been a while since we've seen Luffy take on a completely new form, apart from his Tank Man, which totally demolished Cracker, by the way. So we saw how that turned out. Usually when Luffy takes a new form, especially like Bound Man and Tank Man, he was demolishing Doflamingo and he was demolishing Cracker when he used Tank Man. And like I said, yeah, Doffy got butt raped once Luffy went into Bound Man, but Katakuri is more intelligent and composed, working out his next response and what to do. So it was a good chapter, but we're on break next week, so it is what it is, and it's sad times, but this chapter was enjoyable. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought of the chapter. Let me know if you agreed with anything I had to say. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you guys in a bit. I don't know when the next chapters are coming out, but I'll see you whenever the next chapter I review comes out, so I'll see you then.